We'll be just a second. We got to get her Instagram going. I have a filter. Wait, do it again. Do it again, because I was in the shadow.
Okay, hold on.
Cheese.
I need the light.
Can I be cheesy?
That's weird. You look weird.
Take it before my face freezes.
Wait, come here.
Okay, we got it.
I think I'm.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? It's just Deb right now. Hi, Deb. Thanks for joining. We got this, and Adrian's on. What's going on, guys? Jody, that's not scary. What are you talking about? Okay, we got everybody in. In case you're wondering what this tan arm is doing next to me, this lady got lathered up in tanning lotion the other day, and she did a fashion show yesterday and a photo shoot today. That was fun. I'm assuming in the next couple of days, pictures will be coming out.
Oh boy, will they ever?
All the pictures. Personally, just today, not including yesterday, I think I took 137 pictures of you this morning. So
probably more, maybe more than you even took
it's
at
probably
my show.
close to 200 pictures throughout the weekend. So yes. Hey, what's up, Mary Grace? Okay.
There we
so
go.
if we scoot back here,
Now that that's up,
now you can go live.
now I can go live. Do we have the AC on? Do I need to? Oh, there we go. Look at that. Ask and you shall receive. Where's the live?
In the garden. What's up, Juliana?
Get out of there. Go here. Live.
Deb, did you watch on the feed yesterday for the show? She said she had fun watching you yesterday.
Aw, yay. Did you watch the live stream?
Yeah, that's what I meant. The live stream, the feed, whatever. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Okay.
Twin cameras. All right. That'll work.
All right. If you guys started watching on my YouTube, you can't jump my YouTube and go to her Instagram. You have to stay on my YouTube.
I'm sure they'll stay
I
where
said
they
so.
are. I'm sure that they will stay where they are.
We're in the choosing filters option now on Instagram.
I'm just trying not to make it look white and not make it look super crazy shiny.
Washed out.
Yeah. This'll do.
This'll
Go.
do.
Yours looks so bright and mine looks so pale for some reason.
Do you want me to say it? Can I say it, or are you gonna not? You're gonna yell at me if I say it.
What are you gonna say now?
Samsung droids for the win.
Hey fam, joining on Instagram. Welcome to Coffee Chat. I have my decaf.
Coffee chat. I have my sparkling water.
We're a little much later than usual on a Sunday, and that is because we just got back from the Angel Competition Bikinis fashion show.
Yay.
It's my favorite new crop.
She got to show off her new bathing suit and the old bathing suit.
They're not bathing suits.
Or
I'm not going
bikinis,
bathing in
bathing
them.
suit, bikini. Bikini is a bathing suit.
I think it's funny whenever they call it, like in the hair and makeup, they called it swimsuit. What's your swimsuit?
It is a
look like?
swimsuit,
I'm
right.
like, it's not a swimsuit. Ain't nobody going swimming in this.
It's a fashion swimsuit.
Very much so. Yeah. So
You could go to the beach in it. You don't have to get in the water. Just walk around the boardwalk, walk up and down the boardwalk.
Okay, for a photo shoot, yes. I'll do it for a photo shoot. Yeah, so we just got back from Baltimore.
Yep.
It was right in our old stomping grounds. Would have been nice to have lived down the street for it. But not too bad. It was only about an hour and a half for us. Had a blast. I'll be spamming the hell out of my own feed over the next few days, the next week.
Yeah, if you're not following that,
So
go
much to share.
the bikini. I always want to say the Bikini Keto Pro. I don't know why.
The Keto Pro.
The Keto Pro. The Keto Bikini Pro on Instagram if you're not following her already, and check out all the stuff that she'll be posting about this weekend.
It was an incredible experience.
It was a good weekend.
So much fun. And then today we went to Graffiti Alley in Baltimore and did some shooting. And then he became my photographer.
That's where I took almost 150 pictures. Yep.
We
got
had
some good shots.
We went to the casino last night, had some fun,
Had
some
dinner with my
steak,
parents and my sister, had some good steak, and then had a little party
after
afterwards.
party.
Yep.
It was a blast.
It's cool.
Good times.
So what are we talking about today?
What are we talking about today? We're talking about therapy.
We're talking about
You
therapy.
need therapy.
I got a sneeze coming. I got that tickle. I'm thinking about it now. It's going to
Say
stop.
cows eat strawberries.
Nah.
Say cows eat strawberries.
Say what?
Cows eat
Cows
strawberries.
eat strawberries?
Yes.
Why?
Something about the way that your face moves when you say that. It either makes it either makes the sneeze come out or it goes away.
Wow. Okay. Whew.
It's a little trick I learned a
All right.
million years ago.
Therapy. So this has come up recently with some of my clients. I know it's something that comes up with some of your clients. Something that we, over the years, has continually come up on and off as we work with people, particularly as we work with people for longer periods of time. And we finally get to a point where we really can't help you anymore. You need to go see a therapist.
We can help, but we can't help with
The things
all
that the things that need to be worked on at a certain level. So we want to give you guys just a little insight into what our mindsets are, I think, on what we're here to help you with, and what we would prefer you work with a specialist, a professional who can help you with
mental health
the
professional.
things that really need to be worked on that are kind of outside our scope.
May happens to be Mental Health Awareness Month.
Oh, there you go. Look
So
at that. Good timing. We planned
this on
this.
purpose.
We totally planned this. Yes. Outside of that, we also want to talk about when we do say, hey, we think you should go see a therapist for this issue or that thing or the next phase of your journey. What are some of the common responses that we get from people, and what are some of the things that might need to be aware of when that conversation comes up?
Yeah, what stops people from actually doing it? Or you get started, you try to find a therapist, and then you have roadblocks, and you allow those roadblocks to get in your way.
That's the key word. In case you all didn't catch that, she said, allow the roadblocks to get in the way.
Just like in your health and fitness
Just like in
journey.
everything else, right? It's your choice. So the first thing I think to kind of talk about is what our roles are and how we see our roles. So once you start and talk about, how do you see your role as a coach being different than that of a therapist? Or where do you get, let's do it this way, where do you get with somebody where you say, hey, we've done a bunch of these things, we're at this point, in order for you to move to the next step, I think we need to get someone else involved in the conversation and work that you need to work with?
Sure. Actually, I want to clarify something you just said. So I'm a huge believer, firm believer, that just because you have some deep-seated trauma and bigger issues that you have to work through with a therapist, that you may have to work through with a therapist,
I know where this is going.
It does not mean you cannot move forward with the behavioral things you're trying to change, right? And there are lots of different types of therapy. So part of that recommendation and part of those next steps in what you do is going to be figuring out what you actually need. And that is something that we can't help you with. We can't tell you exactly what type of therapist and exactly what type, depending.
Of therapy, what do you need?
Right. You might need trauma release therapy. You might need cognitive behavioral therapy. These are the kinds of things where you go and get a consult, and usually they will help you determine what type of therapy you need for what's going on with you. So even in that, it's like we can't tell you exactly where to go and exactly what you need, because we can't diagnose what's going on in terms of your mental health. Now, a way that I like to think of it, it's kind of a simple way to think about it. Now, there are types like the cognitive behavioral therapy that can actually help you with behavioral change. Probably deeper and in more in depth than what we would do. We are behavior change specialists, so we do have specialty in that, and we absolutely do a lot of behavior change with our clients.
There is a difference, I think, in the level that we can dig into and the time that we have to spend with our clients, and that's one of the different things, right? Is a lot of this isn't necessary. I think there's two levels. There's probably more than that, but one of the things is a therapist who is trained is specifically in the ways of helping someone go from point A to point B, or develop a certain sense of self-awareness, or work through a cognitive block, whatever the different things are. They have techniques and things that they can use and implement, that they're trained and they're practiced and they have experience in what is going to work best for you in that scenario, just like we do with fitness and nutrition, right? And some level with behavior change as well. They have a lot more time to work with you on just those specific things. Whereas we're trying, at least the way I look at it, is I'm a little bit broader, and I'm looking at what's going on in your head, but I also have to look at what's happening in your day-to-day life, and what other things are adding to your stress, and how is your fitness, and what's your nutrition, and I'm trying to look at all of these other things from a quality of life perspective.
Yeah.
And it's not quite as focused. And for me, my programs are group programs. I don't have a lot of one-on-one time with people. So I'm more inclined to refer someone to a therapist to get that very specific, detailed, long-term solution.
The way I like to think about it, and this is the reason I brought up cognitive behavioral, because that toes the line a little bit more. But a lot of the time, the way I like to think about therapy versus coaching is that therapy a lot of the time is past focused. It's going to go into where things came from. So when you want to start getting into, why do I have these triggers? Why do I have these blocks? Why do I keep doing this thing that I think I don't want to do because I want this result and I'm not changing my behavior? And where did this come from? And these are a lot of the things that I encourage you to identify. I like to talk about, identifying the thoughts, and usually where people want to go from that, when you do start to observe the thoughts and, oh my gosh, I have all this negative self-talk. Oh my gosh, okay, I'm connecting that, but I'm not able to make the change. Where is this coming from? Why am I like this? Digging into.
Why am I like this?
Absolutely, though. It's an absolute, it's a real frustration that people have. And it's, I always say, you don't want to get down on yourself and belittle yourself for, oh, I'm so stupid. Why am I this? Why am I that? I'm so this, right. I'm so, right? That's not going to help the situation. But a lot of the time, that's where people go with it, is like the why. Why am I like this? Where did this come from? Mm-hmm. And I like to say that you don't need to figure all of that out to still be able to make progress. You can make progress in the midst of the discovery of the why all of this exists and where it initially came from. Because what I don't like to encourage is, you now have to go work with a therapist for 10 years to get to the bottom of all your shit.
And then you stop everything
And then
else.
you can come back, and then we can work on the behavioral. Right. That's not true. You can do both at the same time. And cognitive behavioral therapy might be a great option for you to also work on both. So that's why I like to say it sounds very simplistic to say therapy is the past, coaching is the future, because we are more future focused. We're more present focused. We're more, okay, what are you doing the day to day, the ins and outs, the where you're going, versus focusing on where you came from and why you have all this junk, the skeletons in the closet and all that, right? But it's not that simple, because there are therapies that absolutely do both.
Right. And also, one thing that I've seen is, for some people, whether you believe it or not, just taking the step to get a therapist and start therapy allows them a sense of, of peace, that allows them to start doing some of the things that we've been working on them doing. It's like, hey, I've got all these things I know I'm not spending energy on. I know that I need to figure out, I need to get dig to the root cause. I need to figure out where this is all coming from. And I feel like it's blocking me. The minute they say, I'm going to do something about that, and they get a therapist and they start going to therapy, now it's like I'm doing something. Now I want to do more, and now I can be open to, I've acknowledged I have these things that I need to work on that I wasn't willing to acknowledge and address before. Now I'm willing to address them. That allows me to look at the other things that are more maybe process oriented. Right? It's not about understanding all the self-awareness stuff and all the whys and motivations. Maybe it's about saying, hey, I'm going to work on this stuff in my mental health, that's going to give me the freedom to say, look, there are some things that I can just set as goals that I'm going to be consistent at doing no matter what. And then they just start doing those things. And you're not worried about all the other stuff that goes along with it, or maybe jumping in like you used to jump in before. It's just, hey, I need to do a couple things to keep this going while I figure this out. And there's all different ways to look at that. But
just having the support.
Just having that support and taking that action.
It's just like when you first get a coach, right? Before you had a coach, you're floundering, you're not sure what to do, so you're not taking your analysis paralysis, right? You're not taking action because you're confused about all this information and what to do next. And the minute you sign up and get a coach, first, just having a coach, knowing you have a coach gives you like a sense of confidence that, hey, somebody's going to be helping me along. And that alone can start spurring you to action. A lot of people join our group programs or work with us privately because as soon as they do that, they know they need the accountability, they know they need the support and the guidance, and just knowing you have that in your corner.
It's a stress
and so it's the same thing with therapy, when you just know that at least somebody's there to listen to you, unbiased. And this is another reason why, and we were going to get to who should get a therapist, right? When would we recommend somebody get a therapist and seek therapy, right? It's everyone all the time.
I was wondering if you wanted me to fill that in.
If you don't already have one,
everybody needs a therapist.
Then absolutely everyone should have one. I think it's really important to have a whole care team. I have been outside the traditional healthcare paradigm for many years myself. I work with functional naturopathic doctors, but I still have doctors, right? When I have a goal that I'm working for fitness, competition, I get a coach, right? I have had therapists, many different therapists over the years. So when you need support in these different areas, absolutely get a team, a care team to help you with that. Just because you have one doesn't mean that person needs to suffice for everything. You're not going to your doctor, you're not texting your doctor at 9:00 at night like you're texting us.
Yeah.
Right? And I was going to say, that's the other side of the coin with therapy, is that we can usually offer support for what you are working through on the more day to day. Whether it's in a group environment or whether you're working privately with a coach, the therapist you're going to spend the time going deep with the therapist on the specifics of what you're working with the therapist on. Usually there's some crossover with the way that those things that you're working in therapy are impacting the things that we're working on together. And then the time you have with your therapist is different from the time you have with us. Usually you're not texting your therapist random times. It'd be really cool if you can get one to do that. But I've never worked with one. It's always been, I have an hour with this therapist and then they might give me some homework and then I'm going to see them again for an hour, right? Whereas with coaching, we're in contact.
You're texting and chatting and the group and the community. And there's a whole bunch of other things where you can engage and get feedback. And you can share. We have people that share, hey, my therapist said this is what I need to be working on. I'm doing this. How do you guys handle the situation? Or ask, I'm working on this thing. And then that gives us, the coach, an opportunity to say, okay, I know what you're doing with your therapist. How can I make recommendations that fall in line with what that person is recommending and help you together in that way?
And particularly as it relates to the scope that we work within. So scope of practice is another thing, right? What you go to a coach for and what you go to a doctor for and what you go to a therapist for is a different scope. It would be out of scope for me to diagnose and prescribe medications to treat a medical condition. Just like it would be out of scope for me to provide mental health
counseling
for a specific issue.
And to clarify the difference, right? We can give you tools and tips on how to think about and structure your day, how to come up with your motivation, and how to go through some of the mental mindset things of what it takes to be successful in day-to-day habits change, behavior change, okay? Therapy is not for behavior change necessarily. Therapy is often more focused on mental health, okay? So if you think about the difference between mental health and how you're coping with certain things that could fall into a diagnosis, then that's a different conversation that we're not going to be involved in. So that's a broad generalization between the two, but there's just to kind of give you an idea of some of that scope difference.
Yeah. I would say a lot of the time when it comes up in practice with us with clients, it's when we're working on a particular behavior change and there's a roadblock. As you know, we talked about like this, you're hitting a block where it's like, okay, I keep making the same, I keep going back to the old behavior. Right, and you want to start digging deeper into where that behavior came from, and traumas or where this developed, and those kinds of things. That's where go work with your therapist.
Yeah.
They might give you some things to do, some homework related to behavior change that then relates to the behavior change that we are working with you on.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing I would say then you can come in and bring into your coaching relationship is as it relates to the work that we're doing together.
Right. Yeah, and some of those things I think I like. Probably the number one indicator for us, for me, from what you're saying that relates, is when I see somebody who has been going through the same cycle for months over months over months.
Yeah.
I'm motivated, I do something for a few weeks, and then something happens, and then all of a sudden I'm crashing and I give up and I'm frustrated and I'm mad at myself and I go off the deep end, and then I have to be talked off the ledge.
We have a great call.
We have a great call or talk or feedback or something, and then you're feeling good again, and then 3-4 weeks go and you're great and everything's good, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're off again. And every time that happens, your frustration is something about, I don't feel like I have any control, or I see it coming and I just know what I need to do and I just don't do it and I don't know why. Or there's always the same thing. Yeah. And at some point we have to say, okay, we can tell you what you need to do all day long, but you need some really hardcore time with someone who's going to sit down. And here's why the time with a therapist is beneficial versus the time with a coach. Not the time with the coach isn't beneficial, but it's different. And I'll use my own experience with when I went to therapy. One of the times I've been to therapy, therapist I went to was a dude, older guy, scruffy. I walked in the office first time. The office was kind of cluttered and messy, and I'm like,
you're like, oh, you're already judging him.
What the heck am I going to do with this dude? You know, I'm like, I don't want to listen to this guy. And here's the thing, I didn't have to. A good therapist, in my experience, is someone who creates a space for you to hear yourself.
Yes, I
and
agree.
Verbalize
100%.
that, right? So the questions that he would ask, and he would ask a question and then just stare at me until I answered. And I'd look at him sometimes like, I don't have an answer for that. He'd ask me another question.
It's like they called it talk therapy. They used to call it talk therapy.
Right, and it's just,
you have to do the talking.
You end up doing all the talking, and then as you're talking, you get more open about talking. And then you go another time and you walk in, and instead of taking 15 minutes for him to get you to get talking, you walk in, and in 5 minutes, now you're just talking. And then you walk in the door the third time, and you walk in, and you're like, hey, and you just, this stuff is all coming out. And then the consistency of doing that, and then the freedom with which you start realizing the things that you're saying. Now you start talking, and now you start hearing, here's all the things that I'm saying. And then he starts repeating back to you what you're saying in question form, right? And then it's just like, wow, these are all the things, like that kind of experience, guys. If we had the time to do that with you, we would totally love to do that. It's just not. We have a lot of other things that we got to work with.
And when you're working one-on-one with a coach and you have calls,
sometimes that happens.
A lot of that is similar because the process is the same. You know, a lot of the things that we were taught and trained to do with like listening. What is it called?
Not active listening.
No, it's the same book, essentially.
Yes.
It's from therapy practices, but it's basically, it's the same concept or process of asking questions. Coaches are going to ask you more questions than we're not just going to give you answers. If we had a course or a book, right? The courses and the books give you, well, his books actually do a lot of making you think and answer those questions. But yeah, if you take a course, it's going to be like, do this and then do that and then that kind of thing, right? But when you're working with a coach one-on-one, it is very similar to therapy in that way. And it's probably one of the reasons why a lot of my clients say I'm better than therapy.
Well, and that's, and
we
it's,
do get into like, I will notice things with their language and point things out and things of that nature, right? But what we're not doing is, so what was your upbringing? And, you know, tell me about your mother. And
well, that's the thing, right? Is and I love how you said the coaching is for forward and the therapy is for past. Is where our goal is to help you figure out what you need to do to get past the obstacle and move forward.
As it relates to
health and fitness. Well, how can we help you improve your health and fitness? If there's a mental block, we want to help you get through that. Sometimes that mental block is so deep that you need someone to help you dig into the past. And then that's not where our specialty is.
Here's another example. This is so common. Oh my gosh. We almost did an entire coffee talk.
Doesn't she look freaking amazing, guys? I'm serious.
Yo, by the way, I did my makeup.
She did her own makeup today.
This is all me. Of course, it's a little shiny now because sweating.
It's been a long day, but yeah. Okay, sorry, I just interrupted you.
I know. What was I saying?
Oh, now it's even better.
God. I was trying to get cool because this is the shaved side, so now I feel a little bit cooler. It's this hot coffee too, and this hot man next to me. Speaking of this hot man, relationships. This is what I was going to mention. The other big thing we see this so often. We almost did a whole.
You're about to get me fired up.
We almost did a whole coffee talk.
I almost did my own freaking coffee talk.
And we might be talking. We're going to be talking about it probably in Louisville, aren't we?
We haven't decided what we're talking about
okay.
in Louisville.
Well,
but maybe that'd be a lot to talk about in Louisville. We might get people up and leave on us.
A lot of the women we work with, and I say women because it's always the women.
Yeah.
And it is all I work with and mostly who he works with. But a lot of the time along their journey, somewhere along their journey, after they've been making changes for themselves, usually, and this can happen for everyone, men and women, after you've made some changes, especially if you have a spouse who is not on the same page with you, is not on the same journey with you, is not trying to make those changes, or maybe they are, but they're just not as into it as you are, right? Or maybe they're just completely unsupportive entirely of what you're trying to do. You start drifting apart, and now there's problems in the relationship. These are things that we are not trained to handle. Mm-hmm. We can give you all the support in the world, and we can give you tips, like you were saying. We can give you tips and strategies and techniques. We can encourage you, and most of the time we're going to be encouraging you to have open communication with your spouse, your significant other. But
yeah.
it may come to a point where you need to seek relationship counseling.
Yes, 100%.
Professional help, and that is not what we do.
Yeah, that's. I'll be honest with you. That's probably that bleeds into the general issue where we get to a point where we think someone needs to go to counseling. It's usually their own blocks, or it's blocks that have to do with their relationship.
Relationships in their life.
It could be their
spouse,
kids.
it could be their kids. It could be their work life. You know, that it's bleeding into other areas of your life.
Yeah. The relationship thing is hard, guys, because for me, in my experience, when it comes to relationships, it's hard for me as a coach to make recommendations that aren't biased on my experience in life. So I have to be very careful in how I approach that communication, because I would be much more leaning in one direction that may not be best for you or what you want to do, right?
Or what a professional
might recommend, right? So that's part of me being a professional, realizing that my personal experience would bias that recommendation or bias that conversation. So I do not want to even go there when it comes to relationship counseling. So if you're working with me and we identify, hey, there's an issue with your relationship with your spouse that you need to work on, I'm immediately going to say, okay, great, let's move on to something else. You need to go see somebody and talk to them and figure that out.
Yeah.
Whether you do that by yourself, whether you talk to your spouse, you need to do that. You know, the limit of where I recommend when it comes to spouses, like you said, is be open with your spouse, set your expectations, ask them for support, and then try to work out a plan that works for the whole family about what you want to do, right? Because that whole family dynamic plays into how you can do, you know, what is sustainable for you. You don't want to go into something and say, hey, I'm going to do this. Everybody else, screw yourself. That's not going to go over very well, right? So you got to figure out what change can I make that's also not going to completely disrupt my family life. But yeah, so yes. On that note, I'm going to say one thing. They're probably not going to hear it.
Get ready, y'all.
Should I say this?
This is our platform. Go for it.
Men, if you are listening, women, if you can get your man to listen to this clip, do not call yourself a man if you are not willing to support the woman that you claim to love in her quest to improve her life. Done.
You're getting a little teary.
I am. It pisses me off.
Yeah.
It fucking pisses me off.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to go on a rant right now. There's nothing worse. There's nothing worse, guys. If you got a woman who has put herself into you and you're not willing to do the same for her, just walk away. Because you're destroying her as a woman. So, anywho, if we do, as your coach, say, hey, we think it's time for you to get a therapist. Likely, like me, when I was first recommended to see a therapist, I'd be like, hell no. I don't need that. I got it. I'll figure it out.
Right.
Right? Yeah, no. We're not telling you because we're trying to push you off, and we're not telling you because we don't want to deal with you. We're telling you because we want to help you the best we possibly can. And in order to do that, we've seen a pattern, or we've seen some cycle of some activity or thought process or belief system. Something in our interaction has said, this person needs additional support.
Yeah.
And we hope that you would take that seriously, because if you don't, it's very likely that you're going to just increase the frustration, increase the stress, increase the anxiety, and increase the amount of time it's going to take you to get where you want to go.
Exactly.
Which also increases
back.
the risk of you just getting up and not getting there at all. So we don't want any of that to happen. We want you to get to where you're going. And if we think you need therapy or some other support, we're going to say, hey, we think you need this. The biggest, I know you've got one on your list. I've got this one on my list. The biggest thing that I hear, because I said it, like I just told you guys, with the one therapist that I went to after my first divorce, I walked in the office and I was like, there is no way I'm going to work with this dude. I was like, there's no way. No, there's no way. And I went back a whole bunch of times because I said, what other option do I have? I can jump around and try 18 different therapists.
And you could have.
When there's an option and I could do that, but I'm going to be starting from scratch with every single one every time I go in. And I didn't want to do that. It's like my first visit. Here's all the stuff I'm going through that I'm trying to figure out. Okay, great. I don't know if I like this guy. Let me go see another one. Okay, first visit. Here's all the stuff I'm going through. What's that going to do? I'm going to spend the same amount of money for 8 visits, and if everyone's my first visit, that's not going to work. Right. So I said, screw it. I'm going to pay for this guy, and I'm just going to go.
Well, and ultimately, it's like, why were you not wanting to go there? Because you didn't want to be in therapy.
That's where I was going.
Yeah,
it had nothing to do with the therapist.
You could have found something wrong, like you said, with
I would have found
18
something wrong with
therapists.
every single
Because you
person
had
'cause I didn't
resistance to
wanna
doing
go.
it. Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
And that's what I wanted to get across is the excuse of I can't find a therapist I relate to.
Or that I like.
Or that I like.
Yeah.
Or that I think gets me. Or guys, get over yourselves.
Yep.
Okay? These people are trained to understand and relate. Okay? If you haven't given it a shot, and I can't give you a number.
Give it a chance.
Go at least 5 or 6 times before you say, no, this really isn't working. But if you get to that second or third session and you feel challenged and you feel resistance to doing something that they've recommended, then it's working. Okay? So therapy is not supposed to be comfortable. You do not need to relate to your therapist. Okay? That is the biggest lie.
Well, just like
that I've ever.
It's just like we always have some people sign up with us. Right. And then quickly find reasons why they can't do it anymore.
They pay all the money, join everything, and then all of a sudden they disappear. Where did you go? Well, I have this, I have that, I have this. I didn't understand this thing, so I just quit altogether. Didn't ask any questions.
Yep.
Didn't send us an email. Didn't post anything anywhere.
Yep.
Just one little thing happened. They didn't understand it, so they just quit.
Yep.
And don't do that with your therapy, guys. Please don't do that with your therapy.
It's the same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's resistance. It's coming up because you made a decision to move forward, and that freaks your limbic brain out. I talk about the limbic brain all the time, this survival brain that's living in the emotional brain, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, no, it's risky. Don't do it. And then you start coming up with all the reasons why this is a bad idea. Another excuse or roadblock we hear is, I can't find one in my insurance. There are so many options out there now, y'all. There are so many options. You Google everything else. You go to YouTube for everything else.
Yeah.
You can find a therapist. There's BetterHelp.org.
There's
so many different places.
Worst case scenario, there are mental health lines you could call.
Oh yeah.
And just get on the phone with somebody and call them every couple weeks and be like, hey, I got whatever, right? I mean, there's stuff out there, guys. Even local, like occupational health specialists can do some therapy work in certain circumstances.
There's a lot of the time there's Christian ministries through your
churches. Yeah, absolutely. There's
your church.
There's a lot of different ways to go
that are free, that offer free services. Yep. So find what's out there for you. At the end of the day, you are in control of your existence, of your current situation. We've said it before. Where you are is where you're choosing to be. It's where you want to be. As many times as you might say, I want to be here, there, and everywhere. This is my goal. I want to be there. No, you want to be exactly where your past decisions have brought you. And then your decision today is going to take you where you want to go tomorrow. So if you need help, don't look at your insurance and see that there's 100 places you now don't know which one to go to. Pick the closest one to where you live. Pick, draw it out of a hat. Close your eyes and go down the list and pick one.
Whatever.
Do something to get started because you're the one holding yourself back if you're not taking that action.
Yeah.
And if you do find a therapist that you clash with, that it's probably you. I will say that it's probably the resistance that's causing that. So I absolutely give them a chance. But if you're really uncomfortable with the person and you're not making progress with that person, you spent 3 months, 6 months, whatever with them, and you are not getting better, then maybe look for somebody else and try to find a better fit.
Yeah. It's just like when we talk about nutrition and fitness, right? If you give it a good shot, you give it a good go.
You have to be
willing. Now here's the thing. Don't show up to the sessions for 6 months
and do nothing
and stonewall, don't interact, don't engage, don't take it seriously, and then say it was the therapist's fault.
Yeah.
Okay. Just like Don't come to us and say, give me a macro plan. And then
you don't
6
follow
months
the
later,
macros,
you're not
and then
following the macros
it didn't
and then
work.
saying this didn't work for me. Okay?
Yeah.
If
Don't do the
you
workouts
go
and then
in
say the workouts
and
didn't work.
engage and participate in the process for 4 to 6 months, 5 to 6 sessions, whatever it is, okay? And then you still feel like you're not connecting, you're not getting something out of it, then make a change. Go look for somebody else. I would bet 9 times out of 10, if you go into it, regardless of what therapist you get, if you are putting the effort in, you will get the results out.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Most of the time. Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely.
It's worth it. I think if you have never worked with a therapist in your life, you should. Just everybody should at some point.
Yes. Yeah, and I was going to say that when you said everyone should go. Everybody needs therapy. I firmly believe that everybody needs therapy. You may not need it right now. You may have needed it in the past. You may still need it. You may need it in the future. It's very likely that I will need therapy sometime in the future. I don't know when or why, right? I've been to 3 therapists in my life for different periods of time. I've had numerous coaches in my life, and all of them have been beneficial on one level or another.
You know,
I don't regret a single one of them.
One of the benefits of therapy that regardless of who you go to, it is an unbiased professional who is listening without a stake in the game of what you do next. That is probably to me the most powerful part of therapy. And that you could be with somebody you don't really relate to at all.
Yep.
You know, my last therapist was an old white guy, completely different life experience, and, you know, had never had an eating disorder. He worked with me when I was going through my recovery from bulimia. But he had a background in addiction, in alcoholics.
Addictive behavior.
Yeah, and addictive behavior. So it crossed over. And to me, that was more beneficial than even the eating disorder therapist that I'd worked with in the past. So, you know, don't write somebody off, you know.
Yep.
It's the unbiased opinion from a professional. And it's not even their opinion. It's the unbiased ability for somebody to be there holding space for you. That's not your mom, your sister, your spouse, you know, somebody who has an opinion about your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you can speak unfettered about anything. Everything is on the table.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to worry about them telling anyone.
Yeah, and it is, there's no judgment.
Right.
At all. Here's the thing. The absence of judgment in a therapist's office only amplifies the judgment you put on yourself. Because any judgment that you're feeling is coming
internal,
from here.
Yeah.
And it's an eye-opener, guys. It is a freaking eye-opener to think about things that you want to say, but you hesitate to say, and you're like, I know I can say this here. This is a safe place, but I don't want to say it because I'm judging myself for wanting to say it.
I'll never forget when I went through the training camp for the soul is something that I've mentioned many times. It is not licensed therapy, but it was a really powerful 90-day program I went through, and then a retreat, an in-person experience. We actually did TRE, trauma response exercises. And then I worked with an integration coach after that to really help take everything I learned there and integrate it into my life after. A very powerful, important thing to do, especially after doing the kind of work we did, which was a lot of like inner child healing and that kind of a thing. So one of the things he used to say all the time, I would say something and then he would say, "What are you making that mean about yourself?"
Ooh.
Whoa, because a lot of the time when we're having heightened emotions around things or we're triggered by something, it is because we're making it mean something about us. Just that question. then it puts it back on you because once again,
Right.
there's zero judgment. It's
Yeah.
powerful stuff.
Guys, one thing I want you to understand is this conversation is important, but it's only impactful because we both done it. We're not speaking from some book that we read or some certification or training that we said, oh, therapy is important, we should talk about that. We're not looking at, hey, what are the trending topics on YouTube right now? Let's talk about this. Okay.
We never look at that stuff.
I know, right? This is stuff that we're seeing in our clients that we have been working with them for years. This is the stuff that we have been through and we have experienced firsthand on more than one occasion. And we can tell you for a fact, it is absolutely worth it. And if you're not doing it, particularly when it's recommended that you do, you are seriously missing out.
Yeah. And if finances are an issue and you do have insurance, go check out what's available. I used to go for, it was like a $20 copay, and I would go once a month.
Yeah. So that's it. Just wanted to give you guys that little chat about therapy when, everyone should get therapy at some point in time. If you feel like you need to, you probably are late. Right? So look into it, go do it. When you do it, it doesn't mean you have to stop everything else.
Absolutely.
If you're working with a coach and you decide that you want to get therapy, let your coach know. The best case scenario, hook your coach up with your therapist. If your therapist is willing to do it, I know me as a coach, I would love to talk to the therapists that my people are working with and coordinate a plan or at least have some communication back and forth.
I've had some clients where it'll be every other week. They schedule their appointments with me every other week with their therapist. So
it's alternating.
Every week they have somebody, and then they're able to bounce back and forth. Or others, I'm going to totally put Coach Mary Grace out there, but hers sometimes happen right before our calls. So it'll be like boop, and then boop, which is really cool because then I can support with that if there's crossover. So yeah, absolutely. It takes a village, man. It really does. Like, get a care team.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be one or the other. Work through, the things you work through in therapy are usually long-term. It's not going to be like a session or two and you clear it all up.
But just the fact that you've taken that step is a good thing. You're going to feel better about doing that.
You'll feel better about yourself just for doing it.
When I was in therapy, for me, just to be able to say I have a therapist reminded me that I was making progress, that I had things I was working on, that I was not settling.
I love that perspective.
Right?
As opposed to the old stigma.
Right.
That stigma is not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
It was like 2 generations ago. Welcome to the gun show.
All right. Any last words?
Don't be afraid of therapy. And
it's dinner time.
Is it?
It is.
We had a nice
dinner
big
time.
brunch, and I am full. It's going to be dinner time in like an hour and a half.
Okay.
All right, y'all.
See you guys.
See you next week.